Welcome to The Smart Divorce on Divorce Source Radio, helping you move forward with focus, hope, and confidence, saving you time, money, and your sanity as you build a better life post-divorce. I'm Steve Peck. Deborah Moskovitch, divorce consultant, educator, and author of The Smart Divorce, brings you the leading experts and researchers in the divorce arena. We'll also speak with those in the trenches, people who've learned from their divorce and how their experience has changed their lives. And they would tell you for the better. Divorce can be a beginning, even if it looks like an end, and rich in opportunity to learn and grow from. And on the Smart Divorce Radio Show, we'll explore how to create a positive outlook post-divorce life. And now, here's Deborah.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Hello, Deborah. Another day, another great show from you.
Well, we do. You know, I've spoken, and we've spoken to some really smart, interesting lawyers. Mm-hmm. But never have we spoken with a lawyer who shared his own personal story.
Oh, really? And who is this we're talking about?
Ron Sapanchek. Now, I first met him when I interviewed him for my top-selling book, The Smart Divorce. Mm-hmm. I say that in quotation marks because I interviewed Ron, and he was so smart. I could have just used that whole interview throughout the my book, but I can't do that because it's my voice. But anyhow, it was it was really, really interesting. And so I recently reconnected with Ron because I'm working with lawyers across North America, coaching their clients through divorce. So we were talking about what we could do to help his clients. And, I liked his perspective. He's smart. He's settlement oriented. I just love his work. So I invited him to be a guest on our show. But I said, Ron, can we talk about something that's really different? Because Ron has his own radio show. So I said, let's talk about something that's different, that people need to hear about, that they need to understand. And, that's just, something that's not often discussed by lawyers. And he said, I can do better than that. I'm going to share with you my own personal story that he has never shared before. It's touching. It's heartwarming. And I guess what you could say is it's not every, but almost every child a divorce story come true.
Well, I can't wait to hear the story. Ron Sapanchek, welcome to the Smart Divorce on Divorce Source Radio.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be with you, Steve, and Deborah, of course, who's an old friend. And you're right. It's a story that I kept pretty much to myself for a long time, and probably because when you get divorced in the 40s, my parents, when people say, have you ever had a divorce, I say, yeah. My divorce was in 1948. I was 9 years old, and it was a shocking, shameful thing. And so I never wanted to talk about it. But I think in some cases people take some encouragement and they take some hope away from their experience if they hear about someone who had the experience I've had. And I'm told it's not that unusual. It is unusual, but it happens to other people. There'll be somebody who listens to this story who'll say, "Oh yeah, that's what happened to me." And what happened to me was that when I was 9 years old, my mother took me by my shoulders in my grandmother's kitchen in Seattle and said, "Ronnie, we're not going back to Long Beach. I'm divorcing your father, and you're going to be my little man." I had 2 younger brothers and a younger sister, and we thought we were taking the Union Pacific from Long Beach to Seattle to visit our grandparents. Wow. So this came as a pretty big shock. And so things being what they were in those days, and my coming from a family where divorce was unheard of, there'd never been a divorce in any of our relatives, and this was a big Roman Catholic, French-Canadian family clan. There's priests and nuns, and it's a mortal sin to get a divorce. You go to hell.
Right.
So it was an awful thing, and we kind of kept it a secret. And my my mother happened to find out that her high school sweetheart had just gone through a divorce. So the two of them got married. My stepfather adopted the four of us, so we all had the same name, and we moved to a new parish where nobody knew us, and this was the deep, dark family secret.
So, Ron, how old were you when your mom remarried?
I was 11 when she remarried, so about 2 years later.
Yeah.
And so then I was 12 when I got adopted. And 12 is the age of consent for adoption, by the way. They had to ask my permission. And I gave my permission, and they couldn't find my father. He was nowhere to be found. So, this is a long time ago. So, that was the way it went. And I happened to be an altar boy when I turned 11. And I did know that my father was coming to the Mass that I would serve on Sunday, and he'd watch me from the back of the church. So I knew that he was around, but of course my stepfather didn't want me to have any truck with him, and I was adopted, so he really had no rights. And it wasn't until I graduated from high school, joined the Navy, and I purposely put in for a destroyer in San Diego and got a destroyer assignment. And after I'd gotten situated in San Diego and started qualifying for some weekend leaves, I started coming up to Los Angeles on the weekends, and by golly, I found my father living on Western Avenue near 59th Street, and he was working on the Harbor Freeway and building the forms for the cement they were laying. And so I started coming up on weekends, and we started going to the Polka Palace down on Imperial Boulevard. He was, Slovenian, and there was a big Croatian Polka Palace, and I got to be pretty close to him. And then when I got out of the Navy, I had a California birth certificate, and the LA City College was free. UCLA was $40 a semester. This is 1960. And so, I was riding a motorcycle that cost me 50 cents a week for gas, $50 a year for insurance, and he offered me a place to stay. So I decided, okay, well, I'll stay and get my education. Well, I met my wife, I got married, I finished UCLA, got accepted into law school. One thing led to another. I passed the bar, and, years went by, and I never left California. I stayed. I, of course, kept a very close friendship and relationship with all my family up north. But fast forward to when I'm age 49, and I'm having a conversation with my mom. Now, my mom had put in for a novitiate for a religious order that taught hospice care, because my stepfather retired from Consolidated Freightways. He came down with pancreatic cancer and got a death warrant, 6 months to live. So my mother became a hospice worker. She kept him alive for 2 years, taking care of him at home. But he finally passed away, and she was now about ready to take her final vows of chastity, poverty, and obedience. And I'm talking to her on the phone, and she asked, as she always did. Now, she hadn't seen my father. She hadn't spoken to him since they divorced. She'd seen him from across the football field when they both came to my graduation from law school, but wouldn't talk to each other. They were both remarried. So, but they hadn't spoken. So she says to me, she's getting ready to take these final steps and become a nun, and she says, "How's your father?" And I said, he's dying. And she said, "What?" I said, "Yeah." I said, he had a heart attack, he had a stroke. He'll be gone in 6 months. She said, "No." I said, "Yes." She said, "Do you think I should call him?" I said, "Well, you're not going to believe this. He's in Seattle." She said, "What, up here?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "He moved in with his sister, Steffi." She said, "Well, I have Steffi's number." Well, make a long story short, I was the best man. My brother gave the bride away, and my parents were reunited after a 38-year hiatus.
Oh, my God, what a story.
So isn't that amazing?
Pretty unusual, and I always thought I became a divorce lawyer because that's what came in the door after I left the litigation firm I was with. And the first time I told that story was actually to a psychotherapist many, many years later, and she said, "Oh, well, what we call people like you in our profession are wounded healers. People that take the most painful trauma of their childhood and they go back into that arena so that they have some power and they have some control and they have some ability." And all of a sudden, a whole lot of things came real clear, like when they first offered vanity plates in California, and I went to the DMV to get my new vanity plate, and well, I actually went to the auto club, and the lady says, "What kind of what do you want on your vanity plate?" And it just popped into my mind. I didn't even think. Kids first, and that's what I have on my California license plate ever since. Kids first. And then the first time I took the bench as a pro tem, sitting in family law, putting on the robe and hearing cases when judges are out sick or on vacation, and all of a sudden I found my bias. Mothers with children who have been abandoned by their fathers. It was really illuminating, and why my practice, why I got into family law practice, and why helping families stay together even though the parents choose to part. That has really become the theme and the focus of the practice. So it turns out I practice divorce very differently, and there's a good reason for it. I've been married 51 years. I have 4 children, 3 grandchildren, and a great-grandson. And I know that people can't always stay together. And by the way, as a P.S., my father asked my mother, he lived another 13 years. They got married, and they stayed together. And he asked her one time, he said, "We get along so great now. What happened the first time?" So she said, "That's easy. You needed a full-time mother." and I had 4 kids to raise. Now they're all raised.
Yeah, and, so he matured. Yeah.
And so, there's a lot to be said for that. My father was very damaged. His parents got a divorce when he was a little kid, and that was back in the teens, so you can imagine what that was like.
Yeah, that was really unheard of.
The father marched the 4 kids into the woodshed and said, "All right, you're all going to tell the judge tomorrow you want to live with me or I'll kill you." And so they all marched into the judge's chambers the next morning and told the judge they wanted to live with their father. I mean, that was the way it was done. And my father never got over that. He thought it was a terrible situation. So when my mother decided to take off, he just disappeared. And that's why he wasn't around. But she had good cause. He was abusive. He had a problem with alcohol. And so, you look back on it, you begin to understand and you begin to see more. And so in my approach to trying to help families, I've really focused on communication skills and teaching people how to talk and how to resolve issues. And one of the first things I do, which is not something every family law lawyer does, I ask them to write a mission statement for their divorce. What do you want out of this? How do you want this to end? How long do you want this to last? How much do you want to spend? So I have them actually write a 1-page mission statement. I have them exchange that and talk about it. And then I ask them to write a family story. What's the story? And that's when I started sharing my father's family story. What's the family story you want your kids to tell their kids about Grandpa and Grandma's divorce? So it puts things into a little different perspective. Couples cannot always stay together for a variety of reasons, but maybe for the benefit of the next generation and the one that follows, they can end the sort of problems that resulted in their inability or unwillingness to stay together. I am a real believer in marriage. I think marriage is the most wonderful, satisfying, healing opportunity for transformation that life offers. And I feel very, very fortunate that I married the right one. I got lucky, and we've been together as long as we have.
And I'm sure she says the same thing about you.
She's kind of fond of me.
I would hope so. After 51 years, you've grown on each other.
In Charleston, and we had just the most wonderful time, just being together and experiencing the hospitality and the grace and the dignity of the old Southern mansions in Charlton.
So, I'm doing a lot of work now with adult children of divorce who reflect back on how their parents' divorce has really affected them. And obviously, this has taken you on a very different path, which I really, really admire. But looking back, how did you feel when you said that your your father had abandoned you?
I felt, I had no idea what was going on. And remember, I'm only hearing one side of the story.
Yeah.
I'm hearing my mother tell me some things, which she was very careful not to tell me everything. But then I'd hear other things from my stepfather that he had heard from her, which may or may not have been true, and I think in some cases probably weren't true. So I was only getting one side of the story. So, I was told this was going to be the great panacea. This was going to solve all our problems, and everything was going to be wonderful. My mother and father stayed married for nearly 40 years, and my stepfather, and they had another son and 2 more daughters. So we had 7 kids growing up. I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters. I love them all dearly, and we're still close. We're having a big family reunion this summer, in fact. But when I look back on it, I realize that people are flawed, that they have imperfections, that they make mistakes, that we don't have the wisdom when we're 30 that we do when we're 50. It's too bad, but that's the way it is, and sometimes we can strive to be better parents. So I know that in my own case, I had 4 kids. I had 3, and then I waited 10 years, and we had 1 more. So we have 2 girls and 2 boys. I was a much different parent for that little girl that came along when I was 40 than I did for the first 3 when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
Very, very different kind of father. And you learn as you go what's right and what's wrong and what makes a difference. And I think anybody that's raised kids will tell you that each successive child gets a better parent.
Well, that's true, because you're kind of learning on the job.
Yeah, and then getting into family law and getting into custody evaluations and reading psychological reports and reading books like How to Listen So Children Will Talk, How to Talk So Children Will Listen. You start really. I was a much better grandfather than I was a father.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. We go through life, and life's a very complex journey at best. But I think we have to be committed to an ongoing devotion to growth and to understanding. And I have come to the conclusion that children don't listen to their parents, and they don't do what we tell them to do. They watch you, and they imitate you. And if you're lucky, by the time they're 40, they won't be a whole lot different. In our case, our 4 kids are our best friends in life. So we're very blessed to have a family that's still very close. We still have family night every Thursday night. The family drops in, and Sunday afternoon, any one or the other that wants to come by and just talk. So, we try to encourage an ongoing relationship. And when the kids come over for dinner, I consider myself extremely blessed, because I don't take it for granted. I know it's not going to last forever, but so long as it does, I'm grateful. And so just learning how to develop and cultivate the kind of communication skills, learning, empathic communication skills, learning how to ask questions in a way that really provokes and stimulates conversation. That's the key to the whole program, I think, is really learning how to talk to other people, how to talk to other children, how to talk to other lawyers. And it's true in the practice. I met with a woman this morning who's seeing me on a matter that is a broken business relationship. But they created something together, and then something happened, and she felt betrayed. And I mean, it's a divorce. It's just like a divorce. The business was the baby they created, and then they had differences about control and power, and most differences are about control and power. People wanting to have it their way and not wanting to listen to or concede to the other side. Well, doesn't work very well if you are unable or unwilling to listen to the other person. So learning how to be a better communicator, learning and developing and acquiring masterful communication skills, I think is really a key ingredient in resolving conflict. Conflict comes down to differences of ideas, differences of values. But people very often make assumptions, and then they start making accusations. And then there are misunderstandings and misinterpretations. A friend of mine, Joel Edelman, who's a mediator in Maui, he used to train mediators in L.A. in the 70s, said once, there is no problem. There is no problem. There is no problem until there's a problem. There's misunderstanding, there's miscommunication, there's misinformation, there's breakdowns and shortfalls, but what it really comes down to is really exploring where the other person's coming from. And one of the things that I'm an active supporter of is the idea of the Havasupai talking stick. Are you familiar with that particular protocol?
No.
No, who's that?
Well, it's developed by the Native Americans who occupy the Colorado River floor at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. They're called Havasupai, and they have this ceremony when one person has something very important to talk about. They invite the other person to participate, which of course could be turned down. But if that person accepts, then they accept all the rules of the protocol, and basically they go someplace private, away from everyone else, where they're not going to be interrupted or interfered with or stopped. They set aside enough time so that they can complete the process, and the one that invites the ceremony is the one that gets to start. So he holds the talking stick, and then he starts telling the person who, the invitee, the listener, everything that's on his mind, everything that he's upset about, everything that's bothered him, everything that he feels has been unfair or unjust or whatever. And he doesn't stop talking until he's empty. And the person who's listening cannot interrupt, cannot debate, cannot dispute. All that person can do is ask for clarity. Now, did you mean Thursday or did you mean Saturday? Oh, okay, I got it. So it's okay to ask for clarity, but that's all. And when the person who's been talking finishes and is complete, the person who's been listening does not start, then the person who's been listening has to say back to the person who started, to his satisfaction, everything he heard. So what I heard you say was, I heard you say this, and I heard you say the other. And now the person who was speaking, who is now listening, says, no, I didn't say that. I said this, or you got that a little bit wrong. This is what I meant. This is what I wanted you to hear. And so it's not until the second person is able to satisfy the first person to his satisfaction that everything he said was heard clearly and understood. When he says, yes, you've got it, then the stick passes, and now the roles reverse, and the original listener now becomes the speaker, and he now has the opportunity to answer, to respond, to explain, to go through and respond to all the points, all the issues, all the items, everything that the first person brought up. And again, when he's complete and he's empty, then the first speaker, who is now the listener, has to say back to him, to his satisfaction, okay, here's what I heard you say. And he repeats it back and forth. I'll tell you something, if you do this process with somebody that you care about, that you really want clarity, and the goal, by the way, you're not done until both people are empty and both people are fully heard and fully understood.
Whoa.
And I've had this take 2 to 3 to 4 hours.
Now I know you're one of LA's super lawyers.
And I'm just surprised that no one has ever hit the other person with that stick.
Well, usually people do this where relationships are important. Now, you figure an Indian tribe, people all live together. Well, what's the difference with that in a family or a business or an industry or a community? I think it's applicable in all areas where ongoing relationships are valued and are important and make a difference. And, of course, transparency, honesty, candor, this all plays a huge part. Both people have to be really committed to a level of integrity that is unequivocal and impeccable. Impeccable integrity is the cornerstone of the process. But when it's all done, you'll see people crying, you'll see people hugging. They're not hitting each other at all. At the beginning, it's a little tense, but as they begin to listen, they start hearing things.
So, have you ever had couples come through this process and reconciled because they were really hearing each other, what their issues are and what they really want, need?
About 1 out of 5. The reality is, yes, I think a lot of divorces happen because they've never bothered to take the time to do the sort of thing we're talking about right now. And my experience is most couples won't even consider it. That's sad, but it's true. But the ones that will try this, and I'm going to say maybe 1 out of 5, certainly...
That's 20%. That's pretty high.
When one person is committed to the divorce and the other person is reticent, is ideally a situation. And I persuade the one that's resolute to go along with it just for purposes of trying to achieve some level of clarity and understanding. Mm-hmm. Then what I get is the phone call, and they say, Ron, we'd like to put things on hold for the moment. We're actually going to go back and meet with a therapist, which is what they should have done in the first place. They tried, or they couldn't, or they didn't have a good therapist, because and I know that therapists are just like lawyers and other professionals. There's some good ones and some that are not so good.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If they were with someone who just didn't really know what they were doing, it could be a big problem. So getting together with really competent, skillful coaches, and I make the distinction between coaches and psychotherapists, because psychotherapy is really long-term personality adjustment and development and design, whereas coaching is helping people solve immediate problems, working on language, behavior, communication skills, and anger management. Teaching skills. But one of the things I've done, just for those of your listeners that might be interested, is I've created a toolkit for couples, for families, that's free. It's called the Divorce Toolkit, because I'm a divorce lawyer, and that's what we have a reputation as being known for. But we're really a law firm that is interested in helping families solve problems. But you don't get very far saying family problem solver. Nobody calls.
Right.
they think they want a divorce. So we advertise ourselves as a divorce firm. And the toolkit is the Divorce Toolkit. It's on the landing page of thelawcollaborative.com. People can go in there. Doesn't cost anything. They can just register. We do want to know who they are and their email address, and if they'll share that with us, then they can have access to 7 drawers that open up with about 5 to 15 tools in each drawer, and a lot of communication work, communication skills, the Have a Supai talking stick, the promise to parents, the promise to children. There's just some really good tools in there that they can look at and access. I know you're big on tools, and
I am.
You offer a whole array of tools, and they're wonderful. I've seen your site, and it's really exquisite. The work that you're doing is wonderful, and that's why I was so thrilled when you called and happy to assist, because you and I are really brother and sister of the spirit.
Yeah, we are. So how do people get in touch with you? What's your website?
Well, a lot of them do on the website, Collaborative Law. We're called The Law Collaborative. That's our name of our firm. And we have, we're in Woodland Hills. We're mostly serving families in the Los Angeles County. We also have clients from Ventura County and occasionally from Orange County, but mostly from LA County. And we're right next to the courthouse in Woodland Hills.
So again, that's thelawcollaborative.com. And Ron, I agree with you when you spoke earlier about the modeling, how we look as children at our moms and dads, and that's how we grow up sometimes, by what we see. And that makes me wonder even more about kids today, because we have so many single-parent families. And you look at kids growing up in the inner city without any fathers. How in the world can they be expected to... I just don't know how they can peacefully work through something that they haven't been able to see. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, that's really an astute observation on your part, Steve, and one that I share. And the observation I've made, I have couples that come to me now for a mediated premarital agreement. Older couples, more mature couples with perhaps adult children and substantial assets, and questions about who gets what and what's going to go where. And so they come in for a premarital agreement, and I've adopted the practice of asking them when they come in, so tell me, what's it feel like to be talking about a divorce when you're not even married yet? And they'll laugh, and there's a little bit of an awkward moment. And then I'll ask them to tell me what the experience was that they had as children, as little people growing up. How were they taught to deal with conflict? What was dispute resolution like in their home of origin? How did they see their parents model conflict and anger management and this sort of thing? And I get them talking about that, and I tell them, I say, right now you're on a tremendous high. You're on the verge of a wedding. You've been spending a lot of time planning this wedding, and the fact is people spend more time planning the wedding than they do the marriage.
Yeah.
And so I say, look, if you have two people living together, there is going to be conflict. And conflict is not bad. Conflict is not wrong. It's normal. It's healthy. It's how you manage the conflict. It's what you do with the conflict, because conflict can be an opportunity for growth, for understanding, for insight, for forgiveness, for transformation. I ask them, how would you like to have a conflict resolution plan already in place? And few couples that I talk to, none as a matter of fact, have ever said, oh yeah, we talked about that and we have our conflict resolution plan in place. Well, I've actually designed a conflict resolution plan.
And what does that include?
A little toolkit that has 6 tools. It has a checklist for when there is conflict, how to go through a deal with conflict. They have a Soup by Talking Stick is in there, but there's another program. The problem with the Talking Stick is it takes about a half a day, and people want something they can do quick. So I've shortened that down to an empathic conversation where they have points to go through, where they think about what was said, they listen to what was said, they think about what they're feeling, what they think the person was feeling, what the person said, what they heard. So there's real clear, specific steps, so that instead of busting out and just blowing the whole thing, it gives them, now they have a tool to use. And it takes a while to learn how to do this. It's not something you master the first time you do it. But once you know that there is a path, a track, a way to go, and there's a request form that they can fill out and give to the other one, and then there's questions that they can put in advance, and it really helps people think about what it is they're going to talk about, why they want to talk about it, what their ultimate goals are. I mean, there are some couples that probably shouldn't be together. Deborah, it might not come as a surprise to you, but there are some people you should not marry.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And there are some people who should not marry Deborah.
What?
and there's some people
Don't say it.
Marry. And there are some people who shouldn't marry anybody.
Oh, I thought you were going to say me. Okay.
Yeah.
No.
I want to go back to Steve's question about the children that don't have the role models, especially fathers in their lives. And so, Ron, you grew up, for a long time without your biological father and reconnected with him in your 20s. What was that like?
I was 19.
Oh, you were 19?
I was 19. I was on a destroyer in San Diego, and I called him and said I was coming up to see him, and I got his address, and I got a ride with another kid who lived in L.A. and had a car, and he dropped me off. I'll remember it till the day I die, and I walked up the sidewalk, and he was standing on the front porch, and I threw my arms around him, and I hugged him, and I could feel the tension. He'd never been hugged by a man. He'd never been hugged by his own father. His own father would beat him terribly and died when my father was only 14. He dropped in front of him. He was about 5 or 6 when the divorce happened, and he stayed with the father. The other 3 kids all went off with the mother, and he wound.
How traumatic!
He wound up. Yeah, it was awful. So, but the last time I was with him in September of 2000, and I left the room. He was in a hospice, and he unplugged all the plugs, and I knew I wasn't going to see him again. And I said, "I love you, Pop," and I heard him say, "I love you." He could actually use the words, but it's hard for men of that generation. They were never, little boys don't cry, and men don't say "I love you," and certainly not to another man, and all of that business. And he was a merchant seaman, and he'd been a longshoreman, and he had a rough life. Rode the rails. When his father died, he went on the rails because it was during the Depression, and so there were a lot of reasons why he wasn't able to be a good dad and a good father and a good husband when he was younger. And of course, alcohol didn't help.
But I guess as a child, you don't know that. Like, I do feel that there's a lot of backstory oftentimes, and you're just, people aren't aware of what that story was. And obviously that wasn't shared with you, during your parents' divorce until you were much older.
I'm a believer in something I'm sure you've heard someone else say before. It's never too late to have a happy childhood and find your mentors where you can. I was fortunate that my grandfather, my mother's father, was a wonderful, wonderful man. And I absolutely adored my grandfather. And my great-grandfather, I was the first of the first, so I had a grandfather that was 42 when I was born and a great-grandfather that was 62, so I had grandparents into my 50s. But as I met men along the way who I respected and admired, who were men of integrity and sensitivity and compassion, I found myself drawn to people like that. So finding men who model the kind of behavior that you're seeking to incorporate into your own life, I think is a crucial factor in the whole equation. And I think that those of us in the helping professions who are working with families who are going through these difficult times have a responsibility to model that kind of behavior. The advantage I have over most of the other practitioners, I'm everybody's grandfather now. And my grandfather was very important to me, so it's easy for me to take that role. And I really try to be that kind of wise, empathic, compassionate, caring support person.
I'm also picking up that you appear to be a man of faith. Would you say that's a true statement?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was an altar boy when I was 11, and you can take the boy out of the altar, but you can't take the altar out of the boy.
So do you believe then that faith, regardless what faith you are, plays a role in healthy relationships?
I really believe in the oneness of mankind, and I saw a friend of mine has a poster in her kitchen of the Dalai Lama sitting very quietly with a big smile on his face, and the poster reads on the bottom, "My religion is kindness." And I think that anyone that subscribes to a faith and a universal supreme architect that sees us all as one family and growing together in grace, wisdom, love, respect, and compassion, I think that's our first and foremost focus in life.
Wow, Deb, I met a really nice attorney today.
I know.
A really nice attorney here.
Ron's got amazing information to share, and you're just so wise. But just in terms of your toolkit, you don't need to be a client or in LA to be able to access it, right?
It's open to the universe. I mean, people can go into that anywhere they are. And what I have learned through my involvement in several international organizations is that divorce is more alike than it is different in most of the civilized countries. Mm-hmm. And it's more now about equality and family preservation and family values. So the tools are there. They're going to help people wherever they are, whatever they're up to. And I welcome calls from strangers who just say, I've been in your toolkit and I don't understand this, or can you explain that? I will say that the conflict resolution planning toolkit is not in that toolkit yet because it's a brand new tool that I just created. I'm now in the process of beginning to do seminars. I'm happy to share it with anybody that asks for it. I'm not keeping it from people, but I'm just not certain of it yet because it's such a new tool.
Right.
I want to kind of refine it and fine-tune it before I put it in the toolkit.
Yeah.
Eventually, that is my plan.
And it's very different than my toolkit. My toolkit is, provides a lot of different divorce support information. So they're complementary tools.
Yeah, you're doing a wonderful thing, offering your services to lawyers to work with clients and to talk with clients, because you have the advantage. You were out there, you went through it, you know what it's like, and so you bring a level of empathy and compassion that is unequaled.
Well, I'm on a mission to make divorces easier for everyone. The client, the lawyer, society in general, because we know, and you know, we just talked about that, on the huge impact on divorce on an individual. And it just, you know, once the file is closed, we as individuals are living with the outcomes, you know, the fallout, the decisions.
It's really a laboratory. Life is a laboratory, and we're going through the challenges, the experiences, the disappointments that we're supposed to go through for a very distinct purpose. A friend of mine, Ken Cloak, wrote a book called Crossroads of Conflict, which is a beautiful book, and I'm a big believer in the philosophy that he shares, that essentially every conflict is a crossroads at which we have an opportunity to grow or to just keep going in the same direction we've always gone. But we'll keep coming up with the same problem regardless. It's not until we recognize that conflict is an opportunity for understanding, for insight, for growth, for transformation, and start addressing conflict in a new way. Well, that's hard for people to accept. People want to think it's all the other person. Everybody wants to be the victim and accuse the other person of being the perpetrator. You know, and the reality is we're both in conflict.
Yeah. I interviewed Ken for my first book, The Smart Divorce. And actually, what you were talking about, the rules for conflict resolution are in the book as well. So, Steve, we'll have to get him on as a guest. But, Ron, you've shared with us so much special information. And, like, your story is heartwarming. It's touching. It's gut-wrenching, too. You know, it's a Hollywood movie. But I'm so honored and privileged that you shared the story with us.
Well, thank you.
So thank you.
I love you. I love what you're doing. And Steve, any friend of Deborah's is a friend of mine.
Well, thank you, and ditto.
We'll have to talk again. Thank you.
So again, if you'd like more information on Ron, you can visit the website, thelawcollaborative.com. Ron, you're amazing. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you. Phenomenal.
Well, there's a storyteller for you, Ron Sapanchek.
Dreams really do come true. I'm telling you.
That was such a dream story. I mean, you could see how all the pieces fell into place. What seemed totally in disarray, it kept coming around and things kept working out.
It was like the impossible, made possible, because, Ron did share a lot of the history with us off air, and I understood the background. Mm-hmm. Like there were a lot of things that made sense, but yet how his parents reconnected was, as I say, it's like a Hollywood story. It's kind of like life imitating art.
And how he met his wife, the girl of his dreams, through his father that had gone away for so long.
Yeah. Beautiful. It's a beautiful, amazing, touching story. You know what? There's nothing left to say. I'm like speechless.
Well, this is what I'm going to say. If there's any Hollywood producers out there listening to the show, you got to get a hold of Ron, because this is a movie right here. I'm telling you.
It is.
All right. Well, another great guest. And for more information on your great smart divorce programs, you can go to thesmartdivorce.com, where you've got the Smart Divorce Toolkit, Resource Toolkit.
Yes, the Smart Divorce Toolkit, so you can look up the resources, see the Smart Divorce Smart Guides, the Smart Divorce audios, and get all the divorce support information you need to become empowered and move through divorce more holistically for a happier, healthier future.
And I think something that we don't talk about a lot is that you are the nation's #1 divorce consultant. And for people who are entering the process of divorce and they really don't know their way around, you're the person to talk to, and you do that via consultations on phone or Skype.
I am coaching people all across North America, and now, I'm really pleased to say honored and privileged to be able to be working with renowned lawyers, like, right across North America. They are sending, they're referring me. I'm working with their clients because, divorce is so emotional and so painful. Lawyers want to deal with the legal side of it, and I want to help the emotional side. And it's a win-win situation for everyone. You cut down on your legal bills, you're working more effectively with your lawyers, you're making decisions based on information and knowledge. And, at the end of the day, when your file is closed, You know you've made your decisions. You might not be happy with everything, but at least you've made them with the confidence of knowing you've made decisions for the right reasons.
You bet. So for more information on Deborah, one more time, it's thesmartdivorce.com. And for more of Deborah's shows, just visit divorcesourceradio.com. That's for those of you who didn't find us on Divorce Source Radio. You may have found us on Stitcher or on iTunes, but she's got all kinds of other shows on divorcesourceradio.com. Deborah, always a pleasure. I look forward to our next show.
Me too. It's always a pleasure, Steve. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. As always, I hope the program helped you. If you have a comment or question you'd like to ask us, we'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a voicemail on our listener line at area code 248-686-2256. Or drop us an email with your question or comment to divorcesourceradio@gmail.com. New programs are available every week on divorcesourceradio.com, as well as iTunes, BlackBerry, Stitcher, and all over the web. If you'd like to be notified when new programs are available, you can follow us on Twitter. Our follow word is Divorce Source. Also, if you're not listening from our website, I invite you to stop by divorcesourceradio.com, where you'll find a complete program archive. If you're looking for a specific subject, simply type it into our search engine, and chances are you'll find what you're looking for. We also have other resources available at our website as well. And while you're on our website, click on the Facebook icon and join the growing Divorce Source Radio Facebook community. Thanks for listening. Until next time, make it a great week and stay healthy. I'm Steve Peck.